Hey guys, it's Martha, and I am here to give you a quick video lecture over Chapter 10, which is talking about how you actually write the report. You're going to see me look down a couple times because I've got my notes here that I want to make sure I cover and can follow along with the PowerPoint slides. Sorry. All right, so let's talk about how you write the report. You are going to see a lot of the same learning objectives in this chapter that you would see from chapters 4 and 5 when we actually talk about just basic business writing. And while it seems repetitive, I think it goes to show that these are what the most crucial steps are. And so if you master these steps, then guaranteed the business writing that you have will be very effective. You'll get your point across, and then ultimately your report will make sense and the decisions that you are striving for will come to light. As a quick refresher, we all know that business reports are simply there to help business decisions get made. You don't spend time and money and resources on getting reports done if you aren't trying to make a big business decision. You don't want to waste the time and efforts of your staff or people within your organization. So we are going to talk about how to plan a business report, draft, write, document, and then refine a business report. So going along and starting with planning. So selecting a report format. So the chapter talks about a lot of different formats that you can use. So you can look at primary text, which is just simple words. You know, there's no graphics, there's nothing that really jumps out and makes this exciting, right? So you want to just have your words in paragraph form. You see a lot of these reports with a lot of information. Maybe not so much data in this report because that's where you would see charts, graphs, infographics, and things like that. That is the second type of business report, which is the text and graphic. And then finally, you could do a memo or email. You're familiar with the memo because that is the format that you have to use for your bad news message. So that is considered a business report as well. To format a report and presentation software, PowerPoints are becoming more and more popular. Also, you could use a Prezi. It's the same exact thing, but having that visual software there. Looking at the slide number 5 that has the actual PowerPoint slide, I'm going to start in the top left corner. Detailed explanatory text. You need to talk exactly what you are giving to your audience. So you can put text on there. Yes, your audience might read it, but if it's a report and that's the only slide you're going to focus on throughout the entire evening, then that's okay to have that text there so that your audience can follow along. Going around clockwise, white background. So you don't want this to be busy. You want it to stay professional. So you don't want to have, black background with blue font because then it's just aesthetically displeasing, but then it's also very hard to follow and read from the audience perspective. The message title. We're going to look at the difference between generic heading and message title later on. But for your message title, you are essentially giving the conclusion to your report in the title itself. So with this example, we're looking at Mars has already started down a socially responsible path by choosing sustainable cocoa, but has the opportunity to expand. So obviously, without even hearing anything from this report, you were going to learn about Mars, cocoa, and the opportunity to expand because of how they've gone down the socially responsible path. I mean, I haven't done any of the research, but just from the message title alone, I can pick up that information. You can also see that they used a mix of text and graphics. So that is one of the 3 report formats that we talked about just previously. So breaking up the information. What you see in that quadrant there, yes, you can have that quadrant be the same exact thing on a second column and just be a bunch of information. But because you've got a break from the paragraph form, you can do text and graphics just to make sure that, it kind of breaks up the monotony of all the text on the slides. Page numbers are important, especially if there's multiple units in this PowerPoint presentation, so you want to make sure that it stays organized. And then main points are reinforced down there at the bottom, right there in the box. And then you can also see that they have bulleted their text over on the left-hand side in that column of information. And that's just, it's fine, but I like the graphic itself to the right. It also helps break down the information as well. Next slide, moving on, there are 4 ways to organize your report. So if you organize it by time, location, importance, and criteria. So time is any report that you would see that time is of the essence. So agendas, meeting minutes, those are things that are organized by time. Location, when a geographical or physical location is important, that is if you were doing a report on like office layouts. If you wanted to break down, like we talked about the very first day of class, talking about moving to an LA office, you'd have to have a report based on location because you'd have to figure out how you can move one whole office into an already existing office. Importance is when you have the most important topic first. So this is something that for the busy reader, you want to go ahead and make sure that you have the direct organizational plan, the main point right up front so that they know right off the bat what you're asking of them or what you're going to be talking about. And then criteria is when you're writing analytical and recommendation reports. So you analyze the data, you draw your conclusions, make the recommendation based on the hypothesis, and go from there. So those time, location, importance, and criteria are the 4 ways that you can organize your report. When you present your findings, conclusions, and recommendations, and I am on the next slide now. So like I just said, most reports are going to use the direct organizational plan. So you're going to have your conclusions and recommendations right up front. Audiences might prefer the indirect plan. That's if they're resistant, or that's maybe if the topic is complex, then it's okay to use the recommendation plan. But let's look at this example real quick. So finding. Basically, the finding states that this is the information that's been collected. So for the example, they found that 45% of the building foundation is deteriorated. Sorry, it's very dark on my paper. So based on that, the conclusion is that the building will not withstand another hurricane. So that's what I conclude. Based on 45% of the foundation already being deteriorated, this building will not withstand. Therefore, I recommend that the foundation be replaced. So this could be something that your boss maybe has asked you to look into what the cost would be, if it's worth it to go ahead and replace the foundation. Maybe the foundation's fine, only 5% of the foundation's deteriorated. It's not enough to put in this fiscal budget for this year. But if you have 45% and you can say based on that number that it won't withstand another hurricane, then that makes a little bit more sense as to why you should go ahead and replace the foundation. Outlining the report, I'm just going to go over this quickly, just simply because I cannot stress enough how important it is to outline your work. It gets your thoughts in order. It allows you to kind of visualize what information you are going to emphasize most. It's going to help you get your major points divided amongst your minor points. So it's just very helpful because you can see kind of the order and how everything will be covered. Outlining is just crucial. So here we have an outline talking about working mothers in management. And so their findings are broken down into 3 main points. So they talk about numbers of working mothers, effects on labor productivity, and then special needs of working mothers. And so with that, you can kind of see how those are the 3 things that I want to talk about. If they go back up to the sub point there, number of working mothers, they're going to talk about the national labor force and the state labor force. So kind of the difference between the 2 groups. Next page. And then ultimately, they've got the summary, conclusions, and recommendations as their final segment of the outline. Next slide, talking about choosing headings. We're looking at generic headings or message titles. I just talked about message titles and how you kind of already get the conclusion from the title itself. You can already see what the recommendation is or where the report is going to go, kind of in what direction. But generic headings are that indirect organization. They don't get right to the main point. It is simply just a heading to have a heading. So instead of saying current staffing comparison, which is your generic heading, you could have a message title that says Bishop's staffing level is high compared to that of its competitors. So there's a difference between the 2, and it's completely up to you and how you want to organize your report. But just understanding how there is a distinction between generic heading and message title. Moving on to drafting your report. So everything from chapter 4 is still applicable. So when you draft the body, you've got the introduction, the findings, and the summary. Almost as if you're drafting your introduction, the body, and the conclusion of a speech or outline. There are supplementary sections, and so this is the next slide, supplementary sections that go along with the report as well. So title page, cover letter, executive summary, table of contents, appendix, and then references. Title page is helpful, especially if you're going to be passing this out to people. If they have a title page that says that the report was given by you on this day, you know, copy anyone that's been helping you with it. But if you have a memo, I know we talked about that as one of the 3 formats. Memos do not need title pages. Memos are reports in and of themselves. Cover letter, memo, or email. This is if you have to leave something on like your boss's desk and he or she says, oh, just put it on my desk. You can put kind of a cover page on top of it. Just a quick note, kind of, if you've been working on this for 6 months and you finally come to the culmination of it, maybe like a quick refresher. Here's the report you asked me to do about the building foundation. See me with any questions. Executive summary. An executive summary is basically a quick synopsis of your report. So if you have a 10-page report, break it down into 2 pages. What are the main takeaways? What are the key things that the report reader needs to know from this report? Not to say that not everything is important, but what are the most important key takeaways? Table of contents, especially if you have a lot of information. If you have a lot of information, it is going to be helpful for your audience to be able to just flip open, look to the beginning, look at the table of contents, just go quickly to the data and find out what exactly maybe they want to know if they're looking for that. Appendix is just information that wasn't in the report, but that it's still helpful. So you want to include that at the end. And then references. So again, cite all your sources, give credit where credit's due, and make sure that that information is included as well. Because if you have something that if you've taken a chart from a source, maybe the report reader would like to go to that specific source and learn more information about how that chart or that data is relevant to the report that you've done. So you want to make sure that you give them as many answers as you possibly can. Looking at writing the report, again, this is all just very, very quick stuff, but you want to make sure that your writing style is effective. So looking at how your tone is used, you want to make sure that you use a formal tone. You don't want to use the extemporaneous conversational tone, but you want to almost kick it a couple steps up and just make sure that you are formal and objective in your writing. Pronouns, verb tense, emphasis and subordination, coherence. So pronouns, you want to make sure that, you don't want to use I so much in a report. Verb tense, there's a difference between active and passive. We'll look at a couple examples of all this. Emphasis and subordination. The things that are important should be emphasized. The things that aren't so important should be kind of subordinated within the data. You can still mention them, but just don't go on and on about them. And coherence. So again, making sure that there is that unity, that everything kind of flows together. So instead of saying our turnover rate has skyrocketed in the past year, you could say that we've seen a dramatic increase in our turnover rate. And it's as simple as that. It kind of has the exact same effect, but you can see a different, way of doing it instead of saying skyrocketed. First and second person pronouns sparingly. So again, that formal language. You want to use third pronouns. Don't say I, don't say we. You can say you, so I want to make sure that distinction is understood. So avoid I or we, but you is okay. And then use a verb tense that's appropriate for when the reader reads it. So if you're talking about something that's happened in the past, then use the past tense verb. You don't want to talk about something that's happened in the past, but talking about it being held in the future, because then it's weird and it's confusing. Moving along, add a section overview. So again, here you see kind of a breakdown of regional sales analysis, individual sales, group sales, corporate sales. But you can kind of see that paragraph there between regional sales and individual sales. It kind of gives a section overview as to what the reader is about to take away. So you can see that they have the 3, but without looking at the whole slide, there's that section overview. It says, here's a quick highlight of what it is you're going to read. Writing the report, so documenting. Why do we document sources? Because you don't want to be called for plagiarism. That's bad. Anybody that would question your credibility when writing this report is, it just looks negatively upon you. If for some reason they would ever think that you would plagiarize this work. So just be mindful. Give credit where credit's due. There are 2 ways to document. You can do it by footnote or an endnote, or you could just simply do a reference page. So a list of references at the end of the report. And then ultimately refining. So again, revise for content, style, correctness. These are 3 categories that you know very well from previous chapters. So I'm not going to go through the list, but there's that checklist there. If you can answer checklist yes on all of these, then you're good to go. And then finally, format and proofread. So make sure that your format's correct, and then proofread this. Make sure that everything that could possibly have been checked get checked. Make sure your data lines up. Make sure your titles are correct. Make sure that your spelling is correct, your grammar is correct. Everything, so that ultimately you are not being called into question for the credibility of your work or the validity of your work itself. So that is chapter 10, quick overview of writing your report. And I thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good night. Bye.